A single footprint presses into wet clay, half erased by rain, and somewhere nearby, a woman stops walking. She turns her head, not toward a sound, toward nothing you can see. But she knows exactly which direction leads home. She has never seen a map. She has no compass, no landmark visible through the fog, rolling across the valley floor. And yet something inside her body is quietly calculating, second by second, the precise angle back to the fire she left burning at dawn. This is not a guess. This is a 40,000-year-old skill, buried so deep in human biology that most people alive today have never once noticed they still carry it. Most people assume navigation is something we learned, a tool like fire or the wheel, something invented, taught, passed down through diagrams and instruction. But that isn't what happened. Long before humans drew the first map, before anyone carved a mark into stone to represent a river or a ridge, the human brain was already building an invisible map of its own, constantly, silently, without permission. Every step you take, your inner ear is measuring rotation. Every stride, your hips are counting distance. Every glance you take at the horizon, your visual cortex is quietly cross-referencing the angle of light against the memory of where you started. Scientists call this dead reckoning. Hunter-gatherers never needed the term. Their bodies already knew. Consider what it actually requires to walk for 11 hours through unfamiliar terrain, weaving around fallen trees, descending into ravines, doubling back to avoid a predator's scent, and still turn, without hesitation, toward the exact direction of a camp you cannot see, hear, or smell. That is not intuition. That is computation. And your brain has been quietly running this calculation since the moment you learned to crawl. In the early 2000s, researchers working with indigenous trackers in the Kalahari Desert noticed something that unsettled their assumptions. These trackers, walking through featureless scrubland under a punishing sun, could point instantly, without pause, toward a village more than 15 kilometers away, hidden behind hills they had not seen in hours. When asked how they knew, most gave the same answer. They didn't know how they knew. They simply knew. This is the first hint of something extraordinary. Some of the most sophisticated computations the human brain performs happen entirely below conscious awareness. You're not meant to feel your inner compass working. You're only meant to trust it. But trust like that is not born from convenience. It is born from consequence. Imagine for a moment what happens to an early human who loses this ability. Not metaphorically, literally. A hunter separated from their group at dusk in a landscape without trails, without lights, without any of the artificial scaffolding modern humans now lean on. Disorientation, for most of evolutionary history, was not an inconvenience. It was often a death sentence. Predators moved at night. Temperatures dropped fast enough to kill within hours. Water sources were unpredictable and unmarked. In this world, the ability to find your way home wasn't a convenience layered on top of survival. It was survival, which means natural selection did something remarkable. It didn't simply favor humans who were slightly better at remembering paths. It rewired the brain itself around the problem of space. Deep inside the hippocampus, neuroscientists discovered a strange population of cells in the early 1970s that seemed to do nothing except fire in response to location. Move to one corner of a room, and a specific set of neurons activates. Move to another corner, and a different set lights up. These became known as place cells. Years later, another discovery went even further. Grid cells, found in the entorhinal cortex, fire in a pattern so mathematically precise that, when mapped, they form a lattice of perfect hexagons, an internal coordinate system, quietly tiling space inside your skull, whether you are aware of it or not. Your brain is not simply remembering where you have been. It is building a mathematical model of the world in real time, using triangles and angles most people could never consciously calculate. This discovery, later recognized with a Nobel Prize, revealed something almost uncomfortable about human nature. We like to imagine our intelligence as something separate from the animal world, something elevated, abstract, symbolic. But some of our most advanced neural machinery evolved for something far more primal. Not language, not reasoning. Finding our way home. And this raises an unsettling question. If the ability to navigate Is this deeply wired? Why do so many modern humans feel like they have no sense of direction at all? The answer reveals something uncomfortable about the world we've built. For nearly the entirety of human evolution, navigation was practiced constantly out of necessity. Every walk to gather food, every hunt, every seasonal migration reinforced the brain's spatial machinery. The skill wasn't innate perfection. It was innate potential, sharpened through relentless use. Modern life removed the practice, not the potential. Turn-by-turn directions, street signs, GPS arrows. Each one quietly outsources a calculation the brain once performed alone. And like any unused muscle, the neural architecture for wayfinding can weaken when it is never asked to work. In 2020, researchers studying licensed London taxi drivers found something striking. Years of navigating the city's famously chaotic street layout without GPS, using only memorized routes, was associated with a measurably larger hippocampus compared to non-drivers. The brain had physically reshaped itself around the demand of finding the way. This is the perspective inversion hiding at the center of the story. What looks like an ordinary, forgettable skill, knowing which way is home, is actually one of the oldest and most sophisticated cognitive achievements our species ever developed. And what looks like modern convenience may, in some quiet way, be dimming a light that once burned brightly in every human mind. But the story runs deeper than the hippocampus. Long before written language, humans across radically different environments developed astonishing external systems for encoding spatial knowledge. Pacific Islander navigators memorized the subtle rhythm of ocean swells, refracting around distant islands, reading the sea itself as a map, guiding canoes across thousands of kilometers of open water without instruments. Aboriginal Australians encoded entire song lines, vast oral maps stretching across the continent, embedding travel routes, water sources, and dangers inside rhythm, melody, and story, passed from generation to generation with extraordinary accuracy. These were not primitive workarounds. They were sophisticated cognitive technologies, built long before the written word, proving that navigation was never simply a physical skill. It was cultural. It was narrative. It was, in many ways, sacred. Because to lose your way in the ancient world was not just to become lost geographically. It was to become lost socially, spiritually, existentially, severed from the tribe, the ancestors, the story that gave your life meaning, which may explain something curious about the human mind even today. Ask someone what fear feels like when truly lost, not inconvenienced, but lost. And most will describe something closer to panic than mere confusion, a rising primal alarm that seems disproportionate to the situation. That fear is not irrational. It is ancient memory, surfacing exactly as it was designed to. And perhaps this is why, even now, in a world saturated with satellites and glowing screens, something in us still responds instinctively to the position of the sun, the direction of prevailing wind, the subtle slope of unfamiliar ground. The woman standing in the fog all those thousands of years ago was not performing magic. She was running one of the oldest programs the human brain has ever written, refined across hundreds of thousands of years, encoded so deeply into her biology that she never needed to consciously think about it at all. And somewhere, beneath the noise of modern life, that same program is still running quietly inside you. The next time you find yourself walking somewhere familiar, half lost in thought, feet moving without instruction, notice what is actually happening beneath the surface. You are not walking blindly. You're navigating with a system older than language, older than fire, older than almost everything you consider human. And for a brief moment, standing wherever you are right now, you're not so different from her after all, still finding your way home,